That's where most of them fail, because if you look at stats, 78% of investors in Australia, so that's about 2.5 million investors, only own one or two properties. You're buying beyond your means, you're unnecessarily redlining your lending capacity. It comes back to cash flow every single time, right? Cash is king at the end of the day, right? Most people are just looking at the first step and the end step, and the rungs in between are missing, so you can't actually climb.
Stick around. You'll walk away with the checklist of the biggest mistakes to avoid before you invest in property.
Welcome back to Property Investing for Women. I'm Reshmi Kumar, and joining me here today is Victor Kumar. We've spent many years investing and helping others build their portfolio, and today we're going to talk about why some people find it harder to build a portfolio where they get stuck at one or two properties. So we're unpacking those and what is the difference that makes someone a successful investor. So joining me here is Victor Kumar, and let's see. Welcome.
Property Investing for Women, empowering women to build wealth through property. A podcast brought to you by Investor Women. Create, nurture, prosper.
Thank you. And it has been a journey, and we've made many mistakes along the way and many life lessons. And you roped me in to ask me many questions, so fire away.
Well, I wanted to see why most investors never build a real property portfolio. So my first question is that we've been investing for over 20 years. Why do you think so many people buy one investment property and never go further?
Yeah. And this is really coming back to finding your why. Most people focus on the how, as to how they're going to start buying, and then they end up buying the wrong types of properties, and then they start really not really mapping out the journey, but really mapping out, hey, I've bought a property. And that's where most of them fail, because if you look at stats, 78% of investors in Australia, so that's about 2.5 million investors, only own one or two properties. Right. And the reason that is because they haven't really started with the end goal. They've really started with, I want to buy an investment property.
And so that's what they do. They just buy the one property and they've done it.
That's it, right. So they're asking themselves the wrong question.
Right. So is building a portfolio about having a high income, timing, or something else?
No. Building a portfolio really comes back to how focused you are in the end goal. And so it doesn't matter how much you earn. It doesn't matter how much deposit you have, within reason. And it certainly doesn't matter what your negative cash flow tolerance is, because all of that can be managed. And so someone with a high income, the portfolio will look very different to someone that's on a lower income, because it needs to be, the properties that we buy need to be affordable. And so if we define what affordable is, affordability factors on the deposit that you have. Affordability factors on how much the bank's willing to lend you. So if you're self-employed, as an example, the bank may only want to advance, say, 80%, and may be mortgage insurable. Then the affordability also comes in with how much negative cash flow that property brings in. In other words, what's the gap between the rent and the mortgage repayment? So that then focuses you on the right type of property, what you need to buy, and that helps you stage up your portfolio.
So what has to be a stable thing? Someone who has this, and this, they are okay to buy, regardless of whether it's high enough or in the right place or in the right time. So what are the basic things that someone has to have? We can say that, okay, if you have this, and this, you are good to build a portfolio.
Yeah, a fantastic question. And it really comes back to, let's look at it from the bank's perspective, right? Because the banks actually want you to be in a position to make repayments, because when you're not able to make repayments, then it becomes a bad loan for them. So if we use that as a template to get started, so what do the banks look at? They look at what usually is called, the 5 C's, but we'll concentrate on the 3 C's, which is the capacity, So your ability to make repayments, and this is ability to make repayments at a stress level. So if the bank's giving you a loan at 6%, you're really running the numbers at 9%. Then you're looking at the character. So the character meaning that what's really happening in your life. So if I bring it back to the personal level, what's really happening? Are you just about to start your new employment and it's going to be shaky, you're largely going to be on commission, so we don't know how it's going to pan out? Or are you going to have a family, addition to the family soon? Are you going to up stumps and go to a different state? So that's what we need to look at. And then of course then it's the collateral. So collateral is what's the security the bank has. So if I bring it back to a personal level, what am I buying? Is it a unit? Is it a house? Is it a block of units? Is it vacant land? All of that comes back into, all right, these are your basics. And then on top of that, then you add what you really are looking at doing in terms of progression. So, how rapidly are you buying? Is it one a year? Is it one every 5 years? And then that sets the tone for your investments.
So the common mistakes people make after or at the purchase of the first or second property, what are they?
It's actually jumping in too early and jumping in when you're not quite financially ready and forcing the numbers, and then also following the trend rather than following what your portfolio really needs in line with your financial capability and what's happening in life, right? So if everyone, as an example, is buying in Victoria, you're jumping in buying in Victoria as well, because that's what all of the social Facebook posts show. And it could be that the Victorian property at the level that you're buying might bring in too much of a negative cash flow property. You might as well spend a little bit more, and perhaps, and I'm making this up, perhaps buy in, say, Adelaide, where the negative cash flow is going to be substantially lower than a cheaper property in Victoria. So they're the things that often trip up people as well.
So do people spend too much time on looking for property rather than on the strategy itself or mapping out what is important for them?
Yeah, they do actually pull the trigger a bit too early. So they get into the buying phase before the full planning phase is finalized. And often what happens is that you start getting into purchases that might not be the right fit for within your portfolio, because you've just pulled the trigger just that little bit too early. So strategy needs to be mapped out fully, and then we look at, okay, what are we really buying in line with the strategy that you've mapped out.
Well, that's great. So Victor, what do successful investors do differently?
That's a fantastic question. What do they do differently? They buy strategically, right? They don't buy where everyone else is buying just because it's a trending suburb or trending state. They're looking at buying within their means. They're looking at it from a worst case scenario, and they're looking at it from things will go wrong and how do I get out of this? Then they look at it from a viewpoint of, okay, is there going to be flexibility in this property from within my portfolio? Will this stop me from buying my next one? What is my plan B? And what is, coming back to the property, what is my plan with this property to help me scale my portfolio or to stabilize my portfolio? And so often what happens is that you're too quick to buy. You're buying beyond your means. You're unnecessarily redlining your lending capacity. Sometimes it's okay to redline, but in a climate where inflation's rampant, in a climate where legislation is shaky, it's best not to redline your portfolio, redline your borrowing capacity, because then there is no way to maneuver and get yourself out of trouble.
How important is having a clear end goal?
It is extremely important, right? So having a clear end goal gives you a good map, and it allows you to actually meander along the path as things change, as life changes, as the economy changes, interest rates go up, interest rates come down. It helps you plug in the right types of properties in there. It also slows you down as well, because then you're being very methodical in how you're buying and what you're buying and where you're buying.
Yeah.
And it also becomes very predictable, because you're looking at the cash flow, right? You're looking at the capital position, you're looking at the equity position of the portfolio. So you're looking at all of the moving parts. And if you're buying way too fast, then it can erode the safety nets. If equally importantly, if you're buying way too slow, your safety nets are no longer relevant, because you really aren't playing the game.
Well, that's good. What role does finance structure play?
Finance structure is perhaps it is the most important bit, right? So without finance, you can't buy. And without the right finance, you're not able to build onto the portfolio as quickly as possible. On the flip side of it, we've been deliberate at times in getting a loan that's a lot more expensive to get, because it gives us a whole lot more money. It actually allows us to secure that property, as opposed to letting that opportunity pass by. And then we have got a plan B, or a staged plan to get out of that higher interest rate loan into a normal interest rate loan. And that, what that does, it allows you to capture the opportunity, and then it allows you to then progress the opportunity to build onto the portfolio, and also allows you to be in the market as opposed to standing on the sidelines.
What are the signs that a strategy won't scale?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Why is it that you're asking all the hard questions? Why wouldn't what's the sign a strategy won't scale? Yeah, cash flow. Cash flow. When you're strapped, when you're really strapped, and you can't, when you're stressing out thinking, where am I going to get the repayments for this month? It's a portfolio that can't scale.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. What did we learn the hard way?
There's so many lessons. Listen to the wife, first one. And I say that in jest, but I say it meaningfully as well, because it takes a partnership to build a portfolio. And both elements of the partnership bring in their own strengths and weaknesses, and you need to recognize that as part of the journey. The biggest lesson I've had personally is making sure that we're not redlined in terms of the affordability of the portfolio. So building the secondary dwellings way ahead of when you actually need it. There was a time when I was postponing the bills to continue accumulation. There needs to be a pause to the accumulation at staged intervals, so that you can then correct the cash flow. It comes back to cash flow every single time, right? Cash is king at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it, the fact that we have been investing all along these years, and we've managed to put it into a systematic way, and the approach is so simple and so easy. So I just really love the results that we can get for the clients because of that systematic approach. And we've been able to put a structure around investing, right? The whole investing journey.
Yep.
What's the first step for someone who is overwhelmed?
Bring it down to simple steps. And this is where you really need to dumb it down to, okay, what's my next step? Rather than, how am I going to get there? What's my next step? And if you dumb it down to that simple step, and each step is a rung in the ladder, you'll get to the top, right? Most people are just looking at the first step and the end step, and the rungs in between are missing, so you can't actually climb, right? So you need to make sure that you identify the rungs and just focus on the next rung.
That brings us to the end of all these questions. Now, I want to ask you, with our current portfolio, current scenario, with the plans that we've got, and we have this new purchase coming, what would you like to share about our current journey, where we are?
Well, we are doing a lot of constructions, right? So we're using this opportunity, knowing that the cost of construction is going to continue climbing. We've brought forward a lot of our constructions, and we've certainly in the process of restructuring our finances so that we can pick up some more efficiencies along the way, because we've built a lot of granny flats and so forth. And what we've done is we've extracted a lot of the available equity and made it into a liquid pot of cash, so that it gives us that strong buffer, which we've always had, and it also gives us the ability to react to opportunities if one does arise, right? So one of the mantras we have is that we always are prepared for the opportunity and not phased if nothing arrives, but we certainly don't want the opportunity to arrive and we're not prepared.
That brings us to the end of the first episode of the Masterclass. Stay tuned for the next one.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned. This podcast has been brought to you by Investor Women.